Everybody. Welcome and thank you for your interest in the AmeriCorps VISTA program. We're excited to coordinate today's call. We'll be conducting a technical assistance webinar for the Iowa AmeriCorps VISTA request for concept paper process. My name is David Parzial and I'm with the Iowa CNCS State Office right here in Des Moines, and I'll be your presenter / facilitator for today's call. We are recording the call today, so if you object, you may disconnect at any time. A few housekeeping items before we get started. All the lines are currently open, so please go ahead and place us on mute if you haven't already, so that we can cut down on any background noise or typing. If you're on your phone and it doesn't have a mute button, *6 should mute and unmute your line. If you're on Skype, there's that handy dandy little microphone icon near the bottom of the presentation screen, and that can toggle your mute on and off. We ask that folks don't place us on hold during the webinar, as that might cause everybody else to hear the hold music. And throughout the presentation, we'll have some time for questions. However, please feel free to use the chat function here on Skype to ask any questions throughout the presentation. And we're a small group today, so we can be pretty open about any questions throughout the process. On today's call, we're going to focus on the aspects of the AmeriCorps VISTA concept paper and our request for concept paper process for new AmeriCorps VISTA sponsors in 2018. My apologies. The concept paper is phase 1 of the VISTA application process. So as we go through material today, we're going to talk briefly about who we are as an organization, about national service here in Iowa. We've got a special guest with us today. Chad Driscoll from Volunteer Iowa is joining us today. As we're going to see here in a few slides, the national service community is diverse, and Chad is with Volunteer Iowa. So we're going to mainly talk about AmeriCorps VISTA on our call today, but Chad's going to share with you a little bit about another opportunity to leverage national service resources here in Iowa that's coming up with another stream of AmeriCorps programming. So we're excited to have him join us, and thank you, Chad, for being on the call with us today. So after Chad shares with us a little bit about those other opportunities, we'll take a deeper dive into the VISTA program, and then we'll talk through the request for concept paper timeline and concept paper overview. Our call today is mainly going to focus on getting a good understanding of VISTA and the timeline for our process. We're going to be doing a second call in about a couple weeks here on October 4th that is going to focus more in depth on the actual concept paper itself and putting a concept paper together in our electronic grants management system, eGrants. So today we'll focus more at a higher level on things, and on our next call we'll get into a deeper dive into the actual concept paper and application itself. As we go through the material today, we would encourage, if you haven't already, to familiarize yourself with the request for concept paper, paying special attention to the links for the program guidance for the project sponsor and the link for concept paper instructions. Both of those can be found near the beginning of the request for concept paper. We recognize we won't be able to go over every area on our call, so we encourage, along with joining us today, to go through that request for concept paper, through those concept paper instructions and the additional guidance, and to also participate in the online tutorial VISTA 101, Understanding VISTA, which is a helpful tool to learn more about the expectations of the program and becoming a VISTA sponsor. You can find that tutorial on our website, nationalservice.gov, on our VISTA page. So who are we? Who is the Corporation for National and Community Service? We represent the largest federal grant maker that supports volunteerism and national service across the country. CNCS is the federal agency that oversees national service programming. You might be familiar with some of our signature programs known as AmeriCorps and Senior Corps. Our state office in specific oversees AmeriCorps VISTA state programming and Senior Corps programming throughout Iowa. We're an independent federal agency whose mission is to improve lives, strengthen communities, and foster civic engagement through service and volunteering. Our programs harness the energy and talent of America's citizens to improve education, veterans and military family services, conservation, and economic opportunity. And as you can see through our signature programs with AmeriCorps and Senior Corps, we have a wide, diverse number of Americans engaged in service from all different types of communities, all different types of backgrounds. Over 50,000 service locations that are hosting over 75,000 AmeriCorps members and 220,000 Senior Corps volunteers. So national service has a pretty strong reach, probably is near your community already in one shape or form. As an organization, within AmeriCorps and Senior Corps, we have a couple different streams of service, and then we do have some additional funding opportunities through our agency. VGF, the Volunteer Generation Fund, is a program that was authorized by the Serve America Act to support voluntary organizations and state service commissions in boosting the impact of volunteers in addressing critical community needs. The fund focuses investments on volunteer management practices that increase both volunteer recruitment and retention. Under Senior Corps, we have three main programs, and these programs tap the rich experience, skills, and talents of older citizens to meet community challenges. The Foster Grandparent Program, FGP, connects volunteers age 55 and over with children and young people with exceptional needs. The Senior Companion Program, SCP, brings together volunteers age 55 and over with adults in their community who have difficulty with simple tasks of day-to-day living to help them remain independent in their homes. RSVP offers a one-stop shop for all volunteers 55 and over who want to find challenging, rewarding, and significant service opportunities in their local communities. And then you'll see under AmeriCorps we have a handful of different branches as well. And as we go through this presentation, if you feel like VISTA might not be the right fit for your organization, we encourage you to think about these other streams. And Chad's going to talk with us a little bit specifically about AmeriCorps State here in a minute, but we want to give you a brief overview of each of these streams so you have a broad understanding. There is the AmeriCorps NCCC program, stands for National Civilian Community Corps, and it is a full-time residential program for men and women aged 18 to 24 that strengthens communities while developing leaders through direct team-based national service in their communities. The campus for NCCC for the North Central region is right here in Iowa, in Vinton, Iowa, so they're close by. AmeriCorps State and National offers grants that support a broad range of local service programs that engage thousands of Americans in primarily direct service activities to meet critical community needs. And then there's VISTA, and that's what we're going to take a deep dive in today, which provides full-time members to serve with community organizations and public agencies that focus on creating and expanding programs that build capacity and ultimately bring low-income individuals and communities out of poverty. So that's a real quick snapshot, taking a broad look at the National Service Network and some of the programs under CNCS. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Chad, who's going to talk with us a little bit about other AmeriCorps opportunities right here in Iowa that's supported through Volunteer Iowa, our state service commission.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for letting us join the call and share some of the other opportunities that are coming up here soon. And again, as was mentioned, if part of this call is to share the variety of opportunities of what the National Service family has to offer. And between both of our offices, we want to make sure that your organization or your community is utilizing what makes sense for you at the time and what meet the needs that you have. So here is just kind of another kind of view of what was just gone over, and it's just kind of a different format. But you'll see us listed there as Volunteer Iowa, and the different programs that we support out of our office specific to the national service side. So we have AmeriCorps state programming that we fund. That's the main bulk of what we do through our office. On the AmeriCorps side, we do our grant application process, and AmeriCorps state allows you to kind of get people to provide the direct service and the direct kind of interventions to do for the needs that you identify in your community. So it just kind of shows you where we fit into the structure and into the flow of national service, and we are partners here in the state with the state office staff as well, who are here administering the Senior Corps and the VISTA side of things of AmeriCorps. A couple of the other pieces we have under Volunteer Iowa is we have a Volunteer Generation Fund grant that we support in providing funding to a variety of community volunteer centers or volunteer organizations, building that volunteer capacity and volunteer management best practices in their local areas, as was mentioned. And then we have our own AmeriCorps VISTA project that is from the corporation state office. And so we use that in a kind of an intermediary model around a couple focus areas to provide so we do recruitment of host sites for people to be able to recruit and place a VISTA member, as opposed to maybe having their own VISTA project. So again, just another option and another variety in this webinar that we're talking about today. And then we also provide some state funding for the Senior Corps RSVP program, and again, we work in partnership with the state office on that and in providing support to that. So if we go to the next slide, it'll share a little bit more information specific to the AmeriCorps state funding opportunity that we have. So in Iowa, we are as a state agency, the grant administrator for AmeriCorps state funding. These grants provide funding to organizations to help them in a variety of ways, with helping them manage the actual AmeriCorps program, providing support and training around recruiting and training those AmeriCorps members, those participants in the program that you have, and when you have this, you provide support to them with supervising them with, like I said, providing training, providing support to the host site that they're serving at, or within your organization if they're serving within your organization. These grants help you think about how you can use service as a strategy to meet those needs in your community and to address those, and then also to support the development of the AmeriCorps members throughout their term of service. AmeriCorps members for state programs can serve either full-time or there are less than full-time service opportunities. Again, you create a program design and a program model that meets the needs you are identifying, and that's what AmeriCorps State can do, and we provide obviously some of that support around that through part of the application process, but also in supporting that one that's awarded throughout the year. As you'll hear about VISTA, there's also focus areas that your program primarily works in or the members serve in, and these are just a variety of that are listed here. We also have some state priorities that are going to be outlined in our official RFA that will be sent out, and there might be other community identified issues locally that you want to address, and that is appropriate as well. But these are some of the national issue areas or focus areas that are outlined. So we go to the next slide. So this now tells you that our Iowa AmeriCorps State request for applications is going to be coming soon, and I would say within the next couple days it will do an official announcement on our listserv and on our social media accounts and through our partners this is another opportunity. This is going to be an application that will be for grants and for programming that will start next fall, so a year from now. So you are working ahead. It's not something, if you have an immediate need right now and you need members to address that need here in the next few months or in the next 6 months or whatever, this might not be the opportunity right now, but it is something to still think about of how could this help you more in a year from now and in the future, thinking about AmeriCorps State as an opportunity for you. The information about how you apply and the materials that are going to be available for this opportunity are going to be posted, and you will use the information in iowagrants.gov. That's www.iowagrants.gov. This is our state grant management system. This is where we have applicants apply. This is where we award the grants. This is how you go through and kind of provide your status reports once you are awarded to us throughout the year. So it is a grant management system that we use. If you go to the iowagrants.gov, you don't have to log in to see the opportunity. If you have an account, you can log in and still see it. You eventually, if you want to apply, you'll need to create an account, and there's information that we will provide of how to do that. But if you just want to see what the opportunity is, you go to iowagrants.gov, click on Grant Opportunities, and then it'll show all of the current available opportunities that are available in the system. Ours is listed as AmeriCorps 2019 to 2020 is the title of the grant opportunity. And that's where you can click on that. It is there now, but if you do that, you'll see there's not much detail there because we are finalizing our RFA, as I mentioned a moment ago. And so that's where the information is available. The first potential due date for new applicants, you'll see here on the slide, is October 24th of 2018, so later this fall. Jamie Orozco-Nego is the staff person on our team in our office who's the lead for this process, and her email and phone number is there. If you have any questions specific about the process or the opportunity, you can reach out to her there. So with that, I will turn it back and thank you for allowing us to share a little bit about our opportunity in conjunction with the VISTA opportunity that you have coming up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chad, for joining us today. Appreciate you guys coming on and sharing a bit about your upcoming requests for applications for state programs. As Chad mentioned, our offices collaborate a lot. We recognize national service can be a solution to many different community needs. And each of our programs and the streams of service are like different tools in the tool belt. And so we want to make sure you have access to all those different types of tools as you're trying to take a look at your community challenges and how you're looking to move the needle on those critical needs in your community. So thanks, Chad, for joining us. And we encourage you guys to take a look at that or share that upcoming opportunity with any community partners that you think might also be interested. So shifting gears back to AmeriCorps VISTA, for the rest of the call, we're going to really dive into the VISTA program, what it is, what does it mean to be a sponsor, and what's our timeline for our process. So a little bit about VISTA itself. AmeriCorps VISTA is the only AmeriCorps program that focuses exclusively on fighting poverty. VISTA provides full-time members to community-based organizations and public agencies to create and expand programs that bring low-income individuals and communities out of poverty. Rather than providing a cash grant, the VISTA program places VISTA members with the sponsoring organization, and VISTA provides a living allowance and other benefits for the member. The sponsoring organization does absorb the cost related to having a project supervisor to support the members and basic logistical support for the members while they're serving, like ensuring they have access to a workspace, perhaps supporting their travel around the community with mileage reimbursement as they're going to community meetings and working on their assigned project. So VISTA covers the support for the members while programs and sponsors cover the support for the day-to-day logistics of the project. While VISTA is a unique grant, it is still a federal resource, and the investment by that sponsoring organization in the community is fundamental to the success of the program. Each year, more than 7,000 AmeriCorps VISTA members leverage human, financial, and material resources that increase the capacity of thousands of low-income communities across the country. VISTA's mission is to increase the capacity of low-income people to improve the conditions of their own life. There's a couple key core principles that the program's had since its founding. The first is that anti-poverty focus. We look for all of our VISTA projects to have a connection that connects the capacity building work of a VISTA member to an anti-poverty impact goal in the community. Any nonprofit organization, educational institution, or tribal or public agency with a program that's poverty related in scope may apply to become a VISTA project sponsor. And then that project's goal needs to address activities that are going to help individuals come out of poverty, not simply make poverty more tolerable through short-term services, but looking at long-term solutions to fight poverty. We look for sponsoring organizations to ensure that the project engages residents of the low-income community and the surrounding area in the planning and development and implementation of the program. We look for the project to ensure it's being responsive and relevant to the lives of the community residents and should tap into inherent community asset strengths and resources. So that's the community empowerment aspect, looking for seeking that community voice when identifying the goals and the work we plan to do. So it's important to ensure that the community is seeking the intervention that you're looking to implement. We look for VISTAs to focus on sustainable solutions. VISTAs are a short-term resource who serve to build long-term sustainability of anti-poverty programs. All VISTA projects should be developed with the goal to eventually phase out the need of a VISTA member supporting the effort and should be focused on strengthening the organization's ability to continue the programming in the community without VISTA support. So it's important to be thinking from day one about sustainability. We recognize our VISTA projects are multi-year projects and are going to host a variety of VISTA members each year working on different goals. But from day one, we want to be thinking about, how we will eventually be able to sustain the work beyond VISTA, and it's important to have that focus in the beginning. And then finally, VISTA focuses on capacity building. And this is a really important one. We've talked a little bit on this webinar about some AmeriCorps resources focusing more on direct services, while others focus on capacity building, and VISTAs primarily focus on capacity building activities. So what do we mean by that? So VISTAs don't provide direct services to low-income individuals, but are working to increase the capacity of the organizations. So what's that look like? So examples of that might be a VISTA member supporting activities such as fundraising or fund development, grant writing and grant research to expand program capacity, the establishment of community volunteer recruitment and management systems, engaging in community outreach to increase awareness and engagement in programs, and collaborative development. VISTAs are mobilizing local resources to achieve lasting solutions to poverty. Projects are focusing on achieving outcome and impact in the communities or beneficiary population, not on the capacity building for just the organization and its partners. So when we're looking at capacity building work, we always want to be able to tie back when a VISTA member, let's say, is researching grants or recruiting volunteers, how is that benefiting your anti-poverty program? So maybe that's looking for grant funding to expand a tutoring program that's working with at-risk kids in your community. That's a great example. So we always look for that theory of change to be connected with the activities of VISTAs, building capacity in a way that's going to improve your ability to address that poverty-related challenge in your community. And what do we mean by the direct service versus capacity building? it's drawing that line that VISTAs are working more behind the scenes to mobilize those systems, to build the capacity, where they're not providing direct day-to-day services to a beneficiary in your program. So looking at that tutoring program example I just mentioned, a VISTA member wouldn't be the individual who's meeting one-on-one with the youth in a tutoring program. The VISTA member would be the one who's doing outreach to recruit tutors and volunteers, maybe partnering with another local school to expand the tutoring program, maybe researching funding opportunities to increase the support for the program, maybe even helping that organization identify a better way to measure the impact of that program. So it's really important to be thinking about, is VISTA the right fit for our organization, what we're looking for, and how can we really maximize the opportunity for VISTA to help us build capacity to move the needle, help us become stronger, more sustainable as an organization, and in a better position to address poverty in our community. Another great question you can ask yourself through the planning process is, what would help us do what we do better, but we don't have the ability, time, or resources to focus on now? Having VISTA members on your team can give you that extra human capital to focus on that question and put it into action. As we mentioned, VISTA is prioritized in focusing on anti-poverty programming and expanding and increasing the impact of anti-poverty programming. We wanted to share this with everybody. It's a map of our state looking at different counties, and the darker the shades, the higher the rates of poverty. So as you can see across Iowa, we have a diverse state with a lot of different diverse communities, and there are differing pockets of areas with high levels of need where VISTA resources can be put to great use. And so we would definitely encourage sharing this opportunity with your partners as you're exploring it, because we know there's a lot of need out there for increased capacity to implement anti-poverty programming. VISTA prioritizes programming in 4 strategic focus areas. So when Chad was talking about AmeriCorps, he mentioned a few of the national focus areas. Out of all of our national focus areas, VISTA focuses just on 4. There's economic opportunity. That might be programming like financial literacy programming, or access to affordable housing programming, or workforce development and job development and work training type programming, and more. There's education, so that might be looking at school readiness programming, school success programming, or access to higher education. There's healthy futures programming, so that might be looking at things like access to healthcare, things like childhood obesity and nutrition, things like taking a look at substance abuse challenges and the national crisis for opioid prevention and response. And we also have a focus area targeted towards serving veterans and military families. And that one, really kind of intersects with the other 3. So, it's prioritizing programming and services to veterans and military families, maybe with workforce development or with access to healthcare, or a combination of those focus areas. So the 4 main strategic focus areas for VISTA are economic opportunity, education, healthy futures, and veteran and military families. You can find some additional guidance on each of those in the request for concept papers. Generally, the activities or programs should be sustainable at the end of a 3-year project period. So when we're thinking about VISTAs being short-term resources and we're thinking about sustainability from day one, we encourage programs to think about that at the beginning as a 3-year cycle. In the beginning of the project, VISTA members may be laying the foundation. In the middle of the project, they may be starting to implement or expand practices, and by the end of the VISTA project, They may be mainly focused on sustainability and identifying how that sustainability is transferred to your team, to volunteers, to staff. The primary role for VISTA members is to build the capacity to address issues of poverty, and again, not to provide direct services to low-income individuals. It's important to note that VISTA members are not staff, but rather they're national service participants. The activities or program created, should always have that focus on long-term solutions to a poverty issue. When thinking about how your VISTA program is designed and what might be the right fit for you and your community, it's important to know that there's not a one-size-fits-all model. We're looking for new sponsors to support at least 3 to 4 VISTA members on their new project. If you're finding that, that's too high of a number for you, you don't think you have the need for 3 to 4 VISTA members, we'd still encourage that you reach out to us and talk to us about your idea. We do have some larger VISTA programs in the state. As Chad mentioned, the Commission's one of those that has an intermediary project. We've got another statewide intermediary project as well, so we'd be happy to talk with you, explore your ideas, explore how they fit with VISTA, and help you get connected with one of those intermediary sponsors that might be a good partner if you're just looking to host one member. But generally, we're looking for new sponsors to host a team of at least 3 to 4 VISTA members. VISTA programs can be single-site or multi-site. And so a single-site program might look like all the VISTA members being hosted at one organization. A multi-site program might look like an organization partnering with a handful of other organizations in the community, and one organization taking lead on the application and sponsorship, but through partnership with other organizations, placing those VISTA members at multiple service sites throughout the project. So there are different ways that you could look at this and could partner with folks in your community. If you've never sponsored a VISTA program or an AmeriCorps program in the past, we really do encourage reaching out to our office to take some time to consult with us as you explore project size and ideas and next steps moving forward. We are always happy to be a resource and happy to walk through any questions you have and provide guidance, resources, and advice as you're navigating these next steps. We want you to be successful because we know a successful VISTA project will have a real meaningful impact in the community. So we talked a little bit about capacity building versus direct service before, so I'll just recap that VISTA looks at capacity building as a set of activities that expand the scale, the reach, the efficiency, or the effectiveness of programs and organizations. Capacity building allows an organization and the community to sustain a VISTA project activity once the project period has ended. So the tasks and activities should be designed to create, expand, or strengthen organization systems or processes, and should also be focused on transferring knowledge, products, and relationships to staff or volunteers that are at the host site or at the sponsor of the VISTA project. And direct service is providing direct services to beneficiaries or clients. So like we saw here in this picture, I think this is a great way to illustrate on this slide. Your capacity building activity looks like on the left, you've got a VISTA member who's researching some community statistics, maybe for a grant proposal that they're putting together or an outreach campaign to increase awareness about a challenging community need and an organization's program. And on the right, you've got another stream of AmeriCorps, an AmeriCorps member who's working one-on-one with an at-risk youth, and looks like they're doing a reading program. So it's a real, I think, good illustration of the difference between the activities. And VISTA members, and the purpose of VISTA is to be focused on the left-hand side there on that capacity building goal and set of activities. So who is eligible to apply for VISTA sponsorship? All nonprofits It's not limited to organizations with a 501c3 status. It can include other 501c designated organizations that have a focus on anti-poverty programming. It could also be public organizations such as state or local government and Native American tribes. So what is a VISTA sponsor? A VISTA sponsor is the legal recipient of the federal grant who's responsible for the oversight of the VISTA program to ensure compliance with the VISTA program's federal regulations. The sponsor is the entity that develops the concept paper for the VISTA program and then sees the VISTA program through to completion and to ensure it's sustainable. Sponsor has to be able to direct the project, which includes recruiting and supervising the VISTA members, provide necessary administrative support to complete the goals, which might include providing a workspace, access to a computer, access to a phone, general office supplies that the member might need while they're serving. Needs to be able to meet the program reporting expectations. There's a series of project reports that we'll ask the sponsor to complete during the life cycle of the program. Needs to be able to comply with the provisions of the Domestic Volunteer Service Act, which is the statute that oversees VISTA and all published regulations, guidelines, and CNCS policies. It needs to be able to develop and manage projects with a meaningful involvement of the community being served. And one thing to note, organizations that focus solely on advocacy and lobbying are not eligible to be VISTA sponsors. So that's one important distinction to note. More specifically, as a VISTA sponsor, you'll provide supervisors for the VISTA member who will meet regularly and provide ongoing support to those VISTA members during their service year. We recommend that it's a good practice for VISTAs and supervisors to meet regularly. That might be weekly, that might be bi-weekly. Having time set aside for one-on-ones we find increases success and impact for VISTA members and also increases retention throughout the program. We look for sponsors to provide assistance to the member in identifying professional goals. As much as this program is a chance for an organization to leverage a resource to build capacity and impact the community, it's also a chance to help build the capacity of the service member. And so we do look for sponsors to support opportunities for VISTA members to continue to grow and pursue professional development opportunities. We look for a sponsor to be able to provide a well-defined work assignment description that has clear goals, activities, and outcomes. We call that the VISTA assignment description, or VAD for short. It's important for a sponsor to be able to provide adequate office space, office equipment, tools, and materials for the member to perform service. The member should have reasonable access to a desk, telephone, computer, internet access, etc. The same types of things you'd provide for a typical staff member on your team. We look for sponsors to plan and coordinate an on-site orientation and training for the members. So thinking about that onboarding process and how to bring a VISTA member onto your team to help set them up for success. And that also includes how you're planning to orient your team on who this VISTA member is, what their purpose is, and how VISTA is a little bit different, how they're not staff, but they're not a volunteer, and they're this national service member here to help you build capacity to increase your impact with anti-poverty programming. We look for a sponsor to be able to provide transportation or mileage reimbursement for the members during established service hours in accordance with your policies as an organization. So if you provide regular support to your staff for mileage reimbursement, we'd look for you to offer the same for your VISTA members. And then we do ask that sponsors support members being able to participate in other statewide training events or national service events such as national days of service like MLK Day or 9/11 Day of Remembrance and other required activities that the CNCS state office may require. There's not a lot of them, but there are some times where we may ask members to come together for a specific event, and we ask for sponsors to support that. So who are AmeriCorps VISTA members? Now that you know a lot about the VISTA program, its priorities, what it focuses on, and what a sponsor is responsible for in the process, you're probably asking, okay, cool, we're going to apply, but who are we going to get to serve on our project? And that's a really great question. AmeriCorps VISTA members are very diverse. They vary in age and hail from a diverse range of backgrounds and experiences. Typically, many of our VISTA members have college degrees or at least a couple years of work experience. At a baseline, we require that they have a high school diploma or a GED. Sometimes local community members apply to serve on projects. Sometimes folks from other states, other parts of the country apply to serve here in Iowa. So, they could be a local individual or it could be a national recruit serving on your project. It could be somebody recently out of college, or it could be somebody who is not quite ready to retire, who has a career of experience and is looking to give back before they close the chapter on for their next step there. So we really do see a wide range and a diverse range of folks serving in the program. We find that most of our members are motivated by wanting to make a difference in their community and have a dedication and a passion for service. VISTA members do commit to 1 year of full-time service on a specific project. So Chad mentioned with the other AmeriCorps opportunity that there's full-time and part-time options. With AmeriCorps VISTA, there's only the full-time option. So folks do commit to serve full-time for a full year. VISTA doesn't per se count hours, but full-time generally means around 40 hours a week. And we count days, so it's a full year service, 365 days of a service term. VISTA members do have to be 18 or older and do need to be either U.S. citizens or legal permanent residents. VISTA members do go through a background check that CNCS coordinates. It consists of doing a sex offender check prior to start and an FBI check when they begin their service year. We will send you guys fingerprint kits. They get fingerprinted, they mail them into HQ, and it runs the national FBI fingerprint check. When we get results back, we'll notify you if they've cleared our background check. VISTA members do receive benefits while they're serving. They receive a living allowance of just over $12,000 per year. Per VISTA member. So it's, I believe, the most up-to-date number here for Iowa, and it's all the same across the state, is $12,311 is the annual living allowance for a VISTA member. VISTA administers that bi-weekly for the members, so sponsors don't have to worry about administering that. It gets paid by direct deposit, and they get that every 2 weeks. So VISTA also does provide some basic health benefits for members that are serving. If members have alternative coverage, there's a healthcare allowance they can take advantage of to reimburse for out-of-pocket expenses. If they don't have their own coverage and are exempt from coverage, VISTA does have a pretty nominal baseline health benefit plan that'll provide assistance to members while they're serving. If they get into an accident or have an emergency or get sick, the plan will provide basic support. VISTA does provide some moving and relocation support for members that are relocating to serve more than 50 miles. So if you've got some of those national recruits or somebody from elsewhere in Iowa who'd be relocating to serve on your project, VISTA provides support for them. VISTA also does provide some child care support for income-eligible members that have young children while they're serving. And VISTA does provide some support for initial orientation for the members and for program supervisors. So as a new project, after getting your program awarded, we would get you enrolled in a national supervisor training along with getting you signed up to join us here in Des Moines for some localized state training as you're preparing to begin recruiting for your members. And as your VISTA members get selected, we enroll them in a virtual member orientation event, and when they start on their first day, they'll have access to that virtual member orientation and all the resources to help walk them through that orientation to their service year. VISTA also does provide an end-of-service benefit for VISTA members, so folks serving when they successfully complete a service year have access to an education award or a post-service cash stipend. The education award is currently valued at $6,095. It's usually toe-in-toe with the Pell Grant amount. And that can be used towards future education or paying down student loans, so it's a very attractive benefit to members. If a VISTA member has decided that they aren't interested in the education award, they can elect to take a post-service cash stipend. VISTA is the only AmeriCorps program that currently offers this alternative benefit, and it's valued at $1,800. It is taxed at the end when they do pay it out, but it is great to have an alternative benefit for somebody who's not interested in the education award. The VISTA program is really designed to be a win-win-win situation for the organization, the member, and the community. There are a couple specific items of do's and don'ts that it's important for us to cover. As a federal national service program, these are pretty straightforward. CNCS policy prohibits and federal law prohibits AmeriCorps programs and their members from engaging in certain activities. So VISTA members are not able to engage in full-time employment outside of the VISTA program while they're serving. They can, with your approval as the sponsor, engage in part-time employment, and we'll go over all of that with folks during our new sponsor training. VISTA members, we really don't encourage full-time enrollment in an educational institution. Going to school full-time and trying to serve full-time it would be extremely challenging. Again, part-time can be allowable with the sponsor's approval. VISTA members should not be engaged in religious instruction or proselytizing, and they should not be participating in political activity, partisan or nonpartisan, while on duty or perceived to be on duty as an AmeriCorps VISTA member. It's important to recognize VISTA members can't displace employees, so we can't apply to host a VISTA member to then become our volunteer coordinator if we already have a volunteer coordinator. So shouldn't be displacing or supplanting staff positions. And AmeriCorps VISTAs and project sponsors are prohibited from requesting or receiving compensation for the service of their members. So we can't charge a fee for a VISTA member working on a project with a partner. So we've gone over a lot of information here about the VISTA program itself, about becoming a sponsor and sponsor responsibilities, and about who VISTAs are and what kind of benefits they can receive. I want to take a moment here to pause and see if anybody has any questions about the material we've covered so far. And if you've muted yourself, please feel free to unmute. If you're on a phone, you can try *6 to unmute, or if you're on the Skype audio, please go ahead and toggle the microphone button at the bottom of your screen to unmute, or you're also welcome to ask a question in the chat bar. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions come through, so we'll go ahead and continue. At any time, if questions do pop up, feel free to drop them in the chat bar, or feel free to go ahead and unmute yourself, and we can go over that as we chat. So let's take a look now that we've talked a lot about what VISTA is. Let's talk a little bit more about the application process to become a VISTA sponsor. So it's a two-step process. The first step is the concept paper, which is going to be due November 5th, 2018. And the second step is completing a full application, the application for federal assistance, which is due December 20th, 2018. We plan to notify applicants on around November 16th if their concept paper is approved, and at that point they'll be invited to submit a full application. It's important to note submission of a concept paper does not guarantee approval. or commitment from VISTA for resources. Each submission is evaluated on its merits and the availability of resources. And then upon approval, as we noted, you'll be invited to submit a full application, and that full application will be through eGrants, our grants management system. And that's actually where you will prepare and submit your concept paper as well. Now, we've released our request for concept papers already so that we can be promoting this opportunity and providing you this technical assistance. It is important to note that if you were to go into eGrants today, you're not going to find the fiscal year 19 VISTA NOFO. That is slated to be loaded up into eGrants in the near future. We're anticipating at the start of the fiscal year that shortly after October 1st, that should be up there in eGrants. So if you went into eGrants today, you're not going to find it. Don't worry, it's coming. We still encourage you to take a look at the instructions, start thinking about your project plans, your ideas, start thinking about putting your application and concept paper together, and feel free to reach out to us with questions. You can get a lot of the legwork done ahead of time, so that way when that NOFO is opened in October, you can jump right in and get your concept paper put together. We do encourage folks prepare things in Word before they upload it into eGrants and submit it. So that way you've got a backup copy. So that's a great practice to think about. So to recap a couple application expectations and specifics, we're looking for VISTA sponsor applications that are proposing to host a minimum of 3 to 4 full-time VISTA members. We're looking for those projects to focus or align with our strategic focus areas of economic opportunity, education, healthy futures, or veterans and military families. We're looking for them to serve rural communities if possible. We'll consider all applications, but extra consideration is going to be given to programs that are proposing to serve rural or non-metro, hard-to-reach communities. An additional priority this year is also the focus on the national opioid crisis and prescription drug addiction crisis in our country, looking at prevention and recovery programming. So if that's an area of your interest and a need you have in your community, we highly encourage you to consider applying to leverage VISTA resources to help you move the needle there. We are also looking for applications with sponsors that are willing to contribute towards cost share. So as we mentioned before, the investment by the sponsoring organization is critical to the success of the program. And VISTA is not a traditional federal grant, and so there's not grant dollars matched with it, but we award slots and member positions. And there's not a technical grant match, but we do ask folks to consider cost sharing towards the project. And so what that means is if, let's say, you apply to host 3 or 4 members, we would encourage folks and ask them to cost share one of those members. And the cost share is the equivalent of that member's living allowance. So for budgeting purposes, you'll want to plan to be able to say, can we support about $12,500 this year? Because that would be about the equivalent of 1 year of a living allowance for a member on your project. And so when you think about that, that'd be cost sharing about a quarter of the cost of those members serving. What cost share helps us do is there's a limited number of federal resources that we have available to award out. And by having sponsors cost share positions with their projects, it allows us to support an increased number of VISTA resources across the state. So we really do value organizations proposing to cost share slots in their proposal, and we would encourage for every 3 to 4 members supporting 1 cost share member. If you have more questions about cost sharing, how that works, what that means, we would encourage you to follow up with us afterwards, and we'd be happy to talk with you more about what that looks like. Some of the key criteria that we consider when reviewing applications are we're looking at how it connects with VISTA's poverty mission and how your proposal aligns with our strategic focus areas, how your proposal aligns with VISTA's core principles, and as a reminder, that's looking at sustainability, capacity building, community empowerment and anti-poverty programming. A demonstration in that proposal of an understanding of national service in the context of VISTA programming. We look for that proposal, that concept paper and application to articulate clearly defined goals with measurable impacts, and to clearly state the applicant or potential sponsor's commitment towards the project's success. When these concept papers come in, we use these criteria to review the applications and to identify which opportunities are moved forward to a full application, and then which opportunities are awarded into a full project. So again, just to recap about cost share, it's really about maximizing the VISTA investment. And so there's no payment down with cost share. One thing to note is it's important to think about how much that might be over the year for your own budgeting. But once your project starts and we enroll members, let's say that we're anticipating these members will probably start next summer. If you enroll 4 members next July, one of them we note is a cost share member, then those cost share payments will align with the VISTA's living allowance after the member is paid by VISTA. You'll get an invoice and e-grants for the equivalent amount, and it's billed on an ongoing basis. So there's no payment down and there's no lump sum expectation, and it ties out with how your project enrolls members. What you get when you're sponsoring a VISTA project and joining in this partnership is a team of full-time AmeriCorps VISTA members who are going to work 40 hours a week on your anti-poverty solutions. And I apologize, the education award amount here is the old one, so that's over $6,000 in a net award or $1,800 in a post-service stipend that those members can receive. VISTA takes care of administering those benefits. They'll get some basic orientation and training and access to professional development opportunities while they serve, relocation assistance, child care assistance, and you'll get utilization of CNCS's recruitment website to promote, recruit, and interview and select candidates. So when you think about it, VISTAs are extremely valuable to the organization that sponsors them. So the concept paper, again, is going to be due November 5th, 2018 by 4 p.m. Central Time. So please mark that date and time. We know the e-grant system sometimes can have technical issues. And so it's really important to get into e-grants, get familiar with it well before that due date. And we'd encourage folks to submit ahead of time. But please have those concept papers in by November 5th at 4 p.m. To meet the deadline. You can find the instructions for the concept paper linked in the request for concept papers. It's also here on our slide, and you can also find it on our website on the Sponsor a VISTA Project page of our VISTA program. And in the concept paper, you're going to find a couple of different sections. I'm going to highlight them really at a high level today, and on our next call, we're going to go into each of these sections, talk about what we're looking for, and how to put a successful concept paper together. But you'll find there's a legal applicant info section and an application info section. That's going to be basic information about your organization, your location, where you serve, etc. Then there'll be a handful of narratives in the concept paper, specifically a narrative that's going to cover the specific community needs, a narrative that's going to focus on how you're strengthening communities, and so what you propose to do and how you propose to utilize the VISTAs to build capacity to address that community need. There'll be a narrative on organizational capability where you'll describe your ability as a sponsor as an organization to sponsor VISTA members and meet those sponsor responsibilities. And then if you're proposing to be a multi-site program partnering with different organizations, placing VISTA members in partnership with them, there's a section called the intermediary justification section where we ask you to describe some more information about your proposed model if you're going to be multi-site. If you're not proposing that, then that section's optional, and just the 3 prior is what you would focus on. So in eGrants, you'll notice when you look at the sections, there's also a review and a submit section where you'll do final certifications and submit the concept paper, and the instructions that are linked in the RFCP go through that in much more detail. So a reminder of some important dates that are coming up in a few weeks. On October 4th, same time as today's call, so we're looking at 10 a.m. in the morning, we're going to do our second technical assistance webinar, VISTA 102, and we're going to take a deeper dive into the VISTA concept paper itself and going through those sections, looking at those narratives, talking about what we're looking for and what makes a successful VISTA concept paper, and how to navigate eGrants and make sure you're comfortable with that. Then a month after that, November 5th, we're looking at the concept papers being due. We plan to notify folks on or about November 16th of their invitation to continue in the process to a full application. We'll ask for that full application and a draft of those assignment descriptions for each of the VISTA positions to be submitted on that final due date of December 20th. And then our plan is to, on or about January 14th, be notifying applicants of their awards, and tentative goal is then in the early spring, February, March, we'll be coordinating some supervisor orientations for new sponsors, and then beginning around March and April, new sponsors will begin their VISTA member recruitment efforts, and we're anticipating a summer start date for new VISTA projects with new members starting on board, beginning their service next summer, probably tentatively around July. And we would go through all the specifics with you through the application process and the planning process. So that's a basic overview of some important dates. This is also listed in the RFCP with some more details, so we encourage you to take a look at that. And at this time, we want to open up the floor again, now that we've gone through the basic concept paper process and request for concept paper process, to see if anybody has any questions. So please feel free to ask a question in the chat box or go ahead and unmute yourself. All right, I don't see any questions coming up. So we really appreciate everybody taking some time with us today. We're excited to announce our request for concept papers and this opportunity for organizations to apply to become new VISTA sponsors. We recognize there's a lot of need across the state to address poverty in our communities, and we really think VISTA is a great resource to help organizations build capacity to move the needle around those issues. So we'd encourage you to reach out to us with any questions you have. For more information, you can contact us at ia@cns.gov. We'd encourage take a look at that VISTA 101 Understanding VISTA tutorial. You can find it on the VISTA campus, or also I believe you can find a link to it on our AmeriCorps VISTA website on nationalservice.gov. Again, we are more than happy to be a resource through this process. I'd like to encourage you to think of this as like an open book test. There's no right or wrong answer there. Please give us a call, talk to us about your ideas. We recognize you being successful helps us be one step closer to eliminating poverty in our communities. So please take advantage of that. We hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you for taking time with us today, and we look forward to working with you all on this VISTA opportunity. So that concludes our webinar and session for today.